The Baltimore Ravens wrapped up their joint practice with the Green Bay Packers earlier today, and there were mixed results, both good and bad. We talk about what happened and so much more coming up next year on this live instant reaction edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, taking a little time on your Thursday afternoon and making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the afternoon, or of course of the day. We're free and available for you all podcasting platforms. So if you're watching live with us in video form, really appreciate that. Hit that like button, subscribe button, turn notifications on so you know whenever we go live talking about big Ravens pieces of news. We go live after every Ravens game. If you're listening audio form, of course, really appreciate the audio listening community as well. Be sure to follow along, subscribe over there. Today's bonus episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We are a 5-day-a-week Ravens content destination. Monday through Friday, we have you covered, so we go through everything. Obviously, it's been a big talking point of how this roster is going to look, but the big conversation point has been leading up to this joint practice. How is it going to go? They go to Green Bay, the Ravens do, and we got some mixed results. And so I didn't know if I was going to actually go live and do something like this, but I figured that there was so much anticipation for this that I thought that I would just give an initial instant reaction to it, get what we know out there, talk about the reports that came out of the practice from both the Ravens side and the Packers side. And then tomorrow we're going to do a more comprehensive episode of who stood out, who didn't, kind of winners and losers from the joint practice. So there's a lot to dive into, a lot of notes. Again, generally a very mixed results type of day for the Ravens, where there were some great things that happened. There were also some struggles that were a little concerning based off of what we heard. A lot of Green Bay reporters out there. I mean, right, they're in Green Bay. They're going to be out there. Not a lot of Ravens coverage. Shout out to the reporters that were out there. I believe there were 3. Brian Wacker of the Baltimore Sun, Clifton Brown of BaltimoreRavens.com was out there. And then I believe Gianna Hahn was out there from the Baltimore Banner as well. So those 3 did a great job holding it down. But again, there was a lot more Packers coverage compared to Ravens coverage, and I think that was frustrating to some people. And actually, I see it right here in the chat. DeAndre saying, don't like how I weren't informed about anything during practice from the reporters. Yeah, there just wasn't a lot of Ravens coverage. Again, I believe there were only the 3 that I mentioned. And they, again, did a great job. But there's limited availability between, the 10, 15 Green Bay reporters and the 3 that the Ravens. So I was really, and I think everybody else was too, getting updates from the Green Bay reporters, and then kind of had the Ravens coverage filtering in after. But so I bookmarked like probably 25 or 30 tweets here. These aren't necessarily in full order, but as the updates were popping up, I ended up getting them in and trying to see. So we'll just go over what happened here. I think the biggest thing first is it actually started off pretty well for the Ravens based off what we were hearing. Roger Rosengarten stonewalled Rashawn Gary on a rep, and that does not happen. Rashawn Gary is one of the better pass rushers in this league. And Rosengarten, we know the pass protection is there. I know it's just the concerns about the size and is the run blocking going to be there, but him winning a one-on-one with Rashawn Gary, that's really big. But then you start to hear the other updates come in. And I think the first one that got a lot of people's attention was during the red zone period. The Packers defensive line, according to Matt Schneidman here, who does work for the Packers with The Athletic, he's the Athletic beat writer for the Packers, said that the Packers defensive line was feasting in the red zone period, and then later elaborated on that and said Lamar's running for his life out here and not by design. That is probably one of the worst updates you can hear if you're a fan of the Ravens, for someone covering the Ravens, if you are involved with the Ravens whatsoever. That's probably one of the worst things that you can hear. And it's a matter of, there's so much already. There's a lot of controversy about the offensive line. There's a lot of worry about the offensive line, and to hear that Lamar's kind of running around and it's, not, because usually sometimes Lamar's running around and you're like, oh, okay, this is a designed run. It just felt like there was a lot of pressure on Lamar, and Brian actually elaborated on that during practice, where Lamar was up and down. Brian ended up saying so far, the offensive line, they had a few false starts. They had struggles as well, and that impacted some of Lamar's throws. That impacted some of what Lamar could do out there. One of the biggest concern points for, I think, every Ravens fan this season is Lamar Jackson's health. Not because of Lamar, but because is the offensive line going to be able to protect him adequately? Now, let's get a couple of things out of the way first also. This offensive line had no Tyler Linderbaum. He still was not practicing. So Linderbaum is the most important piece of that offensive line. I'm not excusing the other performances, but I do want to just put it in perspective that Linderbaum was not out there. Mark Andrews was also not out there as well. So those were two big pieces for the Ravens missing on the offensive side of the ball. But to kind of hear this and just looking at other updates here, Wes, who does work for the Packers, said Devontae Wyatt met Justice Hill in the backfield. There was a lot of other updates about how Lamar was having to run and that the offensive line, there was a lot of pressure. Matt Schneidman saying the Ravens had 4 false starts in the first 2 team periods, and the Packers defensive line was getting steady pressure. Now, the other updates, Rashawn Gary had a coverage sack on Lamar. Lamar also had some good completions to Tylan Wallace and Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller's name continues to pop up throughout all of training camp since he's been signed. But again, it's these are the updates that hopefully we talked about this. I talked about this literally this morning. We had an episode with Kadri Ismail, and we were talking about how this could be a big shift for the offensive line, big momentum, right? Big momentum in terms of guys being able to go up against another team, because at some point things get stale. And Q talked about this. He has plenty of experiences back in his NFL days going to joint practices, and he talked about it where it gets stale going up against your own guys, and it just provides a different challenge and a different test for you. But it doesn't seem like that was what ended up happening. Again, with these updates, it was more of a tough day for the offensive line than it wasn't. Apparently there were some positive plays. Obviously, part of that being Lamar being able to hook up with Isaiah Likely on a couple of throws, Zay Flowers on a couple of throws, guys that we all expected to make a big splash during these joint practices. But John Harbaugh ended up talking about the offensive line and said that he was about 90%. He was happy with about 90% of what happened and how the pocket was able to hold for the group. So again, that's why I say mixed results, where I would say it was more of a bad day for the offensive line than a good day. But he did praise the Packers defense and their defensive front, and all the Packers beat reporters were saying, well, not surprisingly, he was going out there and praising the defensive line front. But Harbaugh was overall pleased with the practice. And I think that more so than not, it was just about seeing his guys up against other guys, and that there was a lot to take away from it. But, with all the other coverage that was out there, it was more so a struggle for the line than it wasn't. But there were other really positive parts that we will talk about. Roquan Smith's start on the day had a couple of would-be interceptions. He had one, and I think he would have had another one. Trenton Simpson had almost an interception as well. So the linebackers, that unit looks awesome. That unit looks 100% good to go. But then there were a bunch of others in terms of the elongated red zone drill. That went on for a long time. The 2-minute drills that were going on as well, there were a bunch of updates in there. And it seems like for the most part, those results, not that the process in them all favored the Packers, because obviously there were other areas in those that were like, oh, okay, yeah, the Ravens, great. Like they had good plays. I'm not coming on here and saying, oh, all the reports said the Ravens were just awful all day, because that's not the case. But it was definitely a mixed results day where we heard about some good plays. We also heard about some not so good plays. And also an injury or a play where Kyle Hamilton ended up getting beat on a jump ball by Christian Watson, and he went down. Jana had the first update on this from the Baltimore Banner, where she said that Hamilton was walking around by himself with trainers. He was holding his left hip. Then he went down to his hands and knees, eventually got up and walked off. It was after a one-on-one with Christian Watson, that being he got beat in the end zone on a jump ball. So, Jana, with that update there, that's not something you like. But Jana then did clarify Hamilton returned to the field, but hasn't been playing. A trainer stood with him. He looked at the hip. So it seems to be a hip thing. John Harbaugh gave an update, said it is not a serious injury. So it's always scary, especially when the most important player on your defense and Kyle Hamilton, gets shaken up. This is the second time he's been shaken up with some way, shape, or form. And, I think overall the Ravens got out of this. Lucky might not be the word I want to use here, but considering that we have seen a lot of injuries happen in joint practices, and, I think we saw the Bengals lose a couple of guys for the season in their joint practice with the Bears. We've kind of seen that trend. I mean, look, Hamilton having a not serious injury as the only thing apparently that happened. That's at least the only thing I've seen. That's a decently good day in terms of injuries where you're not seeing, because those practices, they can get a little more physical, a little more intense. I don't think we heard about any fight that happened, but that's what can. But I think overall, the Ravens learned a lot of lessons today, both good and bad. They were able to take away a lot of things, both good and bad, stuff we will be talking about later on throughout, especially tomorrow when we talk about more of the winners and losers in depth on this show. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll get into specifics of what happened. We'll talk about some of the play sequences that happened both in red zone drills, 2-minute drills. So the specifics of what happened both on offense and defense for the Ravens at joint practices with the Green Bay Packers on Thursday. So be sure to stay tuned. We have a lot to get to on this instant reaction live edition of Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by Gametime. And I love going to live events no matter what kind, sports events, music, theater, comedy. I have a lot of memories of when I was younger, and I try to get to a bunch of them per year, even so today. But Gametime, they have a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Plus, there is a Gametime 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks and Dodgers. Again, 50% off Labor Day offer for Diamondbacks and Dodgers over on Gametime. So that's exclusively on Gametime, limited availability / supply as well. So get your tickets while they last for that. But obviously for the Ravens, a lot of big games at M&T Bank Stadium this season, and Gametime is the place for you to get the deals, super deals, other deals. Gametime has you covered, and there are a lot of features on the app such as Gametime Picks, all-in pricing, which you have to toggle on for that to be able to work. Seat views, lowest price guarantee, Gametime ticket coverage, and so much more. Plus, the app is super easy to use and navigate. Take the guesswork to buy in concert tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spelled LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We return our second segment, Locked On Ravens, here live with you on this Thursday, right about 3:30 p.m. Eastern time for those who were checking in live with us. Really appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens your first listen of the afternoon of the day. Again, wanted to go live here. We just got finished up with the Ravens and Packers joint practices over in Green Bay. So I didn't do this last year. Thought I would do it this year just because I think people really want the updates. They want analysis on the joint practices. Kaji Ismail and I had a great episode this morning that came out about Tom Brady's comments, very eye-opening about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. So be sure to check that out as well. And appreciate everybody who is here in the chat. I see we have we have over 100 people right now, and I really appreciate everybody who is tuning in. But if you don't catch these live, be sure to catch them after the fact, though. They're, of course, available for playback on YouTube, and also we upload them in audio form right after the fact as well. So let's talk about the specifics from this joint practice. We'll get to the 2-minute drill. We'll get to the red zone. We'll start with the 2-minute drill first. Just a couple of different plays. Again, most of these being reported by Green Bay reporters. Andy Herman here, who is the owner of the Pack-A-Day podcast. So 2-minute drill was the Packers offense down 3 with a minute 30. So the ball's on the 30 with 1 timeout, and it's 1st and 10. Jordan Love completed to Jaden Reed on a slant for 15 yards. Next play, Jordan Love incomplete. Then Jordan Love to Romeo Doubs deep down the sideline, deep in the red zone. It was a great route, a great play. Then you have Jordan Love complete short, loss of about 4 yards there. So good play by the Ravens defense, which was a timeout. Jordan Love to Dontavian Wicks in the back corner of the end zone, but it was overthrown, incomplete. So no harm, no foul there. Jordan Love again, incomplete. So the drive stalls, and the field goal team comes on. So, all right, you know what? You hold them to a field goal for the tie. Obviously, the big play there being Jordan Love to Romeo Doubs, who's, I think, going to have another incredible year for them. But Matt Schneidman gave an update on the three 2-minute drills for both teams. So, obviously, it's Packers first stringers, Ravens first stringers, Packers second stringers, Ravens second stringers, Packers third stringers, Ravens third stringers. Packers offensive first stringers. Carlson had a 35-yard field goal to tie the game. Packers offense second stringers. Joseph, 51-yarder to tie the game. And then Packers third stringers, Daniel Carlson, 51-yarder to tie. So that essentially is Ravens defense 1s, Ravens defense 2s, and Ravens defense 3s. Ravens offense for the 1s, going up against the Packers defense. Justin Tucker missed a 62-yarder to tie, and we have specifics on that drive that came out, so we're going to get into that in just a second. Ravens offensive seconds, Evan Williams had an interception on Josh Johnson, and then the Packers defense, Ravens offense, the 3s, there was a turnover on downs. So let me quickly find, because I believe I bookmarked it, the 2-minute drill with the Ravens 1s. At least I think I did. I hope I did, because that was an important part of the show. Oh boy. Well, I'm going to find it eventually. But in the meantime, it's interesting because it's not only the offensive updates that came through, it was the defensive updates. Again, Roquan Smith had a couple of really nice plays, one of which resulted in an interception. The other one, which was almost picked off, Roquan, he flat dropped it, but, it was a slant route, almost picked off by Roquan Smith. The defense, they were making a lot of plays, though. 2 pass breakups, obviously the interception. There were a couple of other pass breakups as well, one on Jordan Love and then one on one of the other backups for the Packers. Nate Wiggins had an up and down day. He apparently got roasted on a 40-yard bomb from Sean Clifford, one of the Packers backups. Man, I really thought I saved that 2-minute drill thing. Let me see if I can find it quickly, because that was one of the big things that I was going to talk about for Lamar, because Lamar ended up evading. They essentially dink and dunked their way down into field goal range for Justin Tucker. He ended up missing the kick, obviously, but man, I'm gonna be kicking myself about not saving that one. But I think with this defensive performance, the biggest question mark for the defense is just consistency, and can these young guys step up, right? For example, Nate Wiggins, Adafe Owe. We didn't really hear a bunch about the Ravens defensive front. Seemed like Jordan Love wasn't necessarily pressured a ton all day. And that is, again, partially due to the conditions of a joint practice, what's going on, but got to give credit to the Packers offensive line as well, where is the other one here? Brandon Stevens also gave up a 37-yard completion to Romeo Doubs, but Ardarius Washington had a nice pass breakup. Washington, that pass breakup, a lot of people called that a really, really, really big one. But then Nate Wiggins also, I mentioned, had an up and down day. He showed good speed, according to Brian here, in his coverage. So, again, you're going to struggle with some reps. He's a rookie. I'm not necessarily overly concerned about that. It's not great to hear about him getting burned for a 40-yarder, but I'm not here saying, Nate Wiggins had one bad rep, he's done, right? We're not going to go down the Kyle Hamilton route with that. So here is another one from Bill Huber. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for the defense. Love threw 4 passes from inside the 10, ended up being 4 touchdowns. 4 passes, 4 touchdowns. Not great for the Ravens there. Lamar apparently had a deep touchdown to Malik Cunningham. Isaiah McDuffie was in coverage on that. Apparently that was a beautiful throw, one of the best throws of the day for Lamar Jackson. Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs had the great connection throughout camp. Again, Jaden Reed had a big play. Now, a note here from Andy Herman, who, again, covers the Packers. The defender that was covering would have had probably been a bit more physical in a game. Well, there was a small collision. But nonetheless, Jaden Reed held on to that ball. So, again, that's the confines of a joint practice where obviously both teams understand and there is a level of, coaching staff understanding and agreement and stuff where, you're going to get physical, you're going to go all out. But, did joint practice had a little bit more of a just non-physical aspect to it. Here, Andy saying the first time Jordan Love really felt any pressure. He navigates the pocket nicely, finds a lane to run, picking up a nice gain. So I guess good they got pressure, bad they weren't able to bring him down. Other than that, yeah, it's the Christian Watson ball over Kyle Hamilton, I think that was kind of the play that got the most hype of the day from Green Bay side of things. Here are other plays that happened. Josh Jacobs had a red zone run. That went nowhere. Where else here? Here we go, 11 and 11 periods. Lamar and Zay Flowers had a nice gain up the right sideline. Lamar had a deep throw to Rashad Bateman, but that was incomplete. Eric Stokes was there, but Xavier McKinney, who's their big-time safety acquisition, ended up having a big one. Kingsley Eganbare had a pressure. Cox had a sack in twos. Ravens had the false starts, as we talked about. I'm trying to scroll. If someone can find me that 2-minute drill. So I see Anthony. Yeah, this isn't the one I'm talking about. Yeah, I talked about that one earlier. I appreciate you. If anybody in the chat can find me that 2-minute drill tweet of the Ravens offense, because that was the one I wanted to talk about, and I thought I saved it, and I just apparently did not. And obviously, if we weren't live, I could just wait, edit it out, and go back and find it. But I'm gonna keep doing my best to try to find it. We're gonna keep trying to find it, but. In the final part of the show, we're going to be talking about the offensive line a little bit more, some concerns, general overall takeaways, and, of course, hopefully finding that tweet of the offense 2-minute drill. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot to get to here. Still on this live edition of Locked On Ravens here for you on Thursday afternoon. Don't go anywhere. Still got a lot to dive into. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. And you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I love heading on FanDuel, checking out all they have to offer. We have something a little different for you now, though. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, we'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. So on FanDuel, Ravens and Chiefs open up in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, Ravens and Chiefs will be getting set to go. And, of course, the Ravens opened up as 2.5-point underdogs over on FanDuel. So if you want to head over and check out that line, FanDuel has it covered. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and download America's #1 sportsbook. We're back rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still talking with you on this Thursday afternoon. Again, appreciate everybody being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day. If you're an everydayer, thank you for tuning in and your constant support. Really, really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. Hopefully you're enjoying the content and hopefully you'll stay a while. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, follow along in video form or audio form. And if you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back to the show. Now, I see a lot of comments in the chat about the offensive line. I see a lot of comments about it. I see Dr. Ilwan here saying it seems like every year it's the same narrative with the offensive line, but they play well in the season. Or does LJ make them look good? I think it's both. I mean, the room for error on the offensive line, first of all, it is very different blocking for Lamar Jackson as it is blocking for any other quarterback in the league. Many different offensive linemen have said that and talked about it, how it's just different. Lamar makes life on the offensive line easier, though. It's just a matter of them being in the right spots, where there has to be a chemistry between Lamar and the offensive line where they know that after a certain amount of seconds, he's going to be looking to get out in space or he's going to be tucking and running here if it happens. So there is a certain level of just like communication that has to happen. But yeah, at the end of the day, Lamar can't do it all, right? Lamar can't play superhero for them. So I agree with you where LJ does make him look good. Lamar makes him look good. And there is a level of a narrative where it's like, oh, well, is this line really going to be good enough? Do they have the pieces? I think the difference this time around is that the Ravens have 3 really young players stepping in, and they lost 60% of their line. And Kevin Zeitler is one of the guys that they lost. And if Morgan Moses is healthy, he also is a pretty solid lineman. Now, I think Roger Rosengart and Andrew Voorhees will be okay, right? There will probably be some growing pains. I'm not saying there aren't going to be, but it's that right guard spot where is it going to be Daniel Falele? Is it going to be Ben Cleveland? We've gotten some updates, some way, shape, or form of, oh, well, Falele's gotten those reps, but now apparently Nick Savek's getting some reps at center and Ben Cleveland's kicking out to guard. So is this competition going to come down to the literal wire? That is the one that's the one that is going to be the key to me. Because I think you have 4 or 5 decently locked in. Linderbaum, Stanley, they're locked. Voorhees, Rosengarten, pretty strong grip. That right guard position is such a question mark. And I just think and I saw it earlier. I apologize to who put it in there. I don't think I could scroll up far enough to find it. But I've said this where if they had just re-signed Kevin Zeitler, looking at an offensive line of Ronnie Stanley, John Simpson, Tyler Linderbaum, Kevin Zeitler, Roger Rosengarten, you're feeling a lot, or not John. Did I say John Simpson? Ronnie Stanley, Andrew Voorhees, Tyler Linderbaum, Kevin Zeitler, and Roger Rosengarten. You just feel so much better. You feel so much better about it. But you know what? We're not in that timeline. We're not in that timeline. So we're going to have to see how it plays out for him. And I see, Anthony, this is not the one I was talking about. This is another one I thought I had saved. So I thank you for bringing this one up. Lamar had 2 touchdown passes during the lengthy red zone period to Kohler and Flowers. Nixon committed defensive pass interference in the end zone, face guarding Tez Walker. But yes, other than that, there were constant pressure and sacks in the backfield, which goes right into the offensive line conversation we're having right now. And actually, I do this a decent amount, but I do want to open it up to the chat here quickly. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you are not concerned at all, 10 being sky is falling, hit the panic button. How concerned are you about the offensive lineman? Are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being you're not concerned, 10 being you're really concerned. How concerned are you about the offensive line? 1 to 10. If I had to get my answer, I'll probably go in the middle. I'll probably say a 5. This guy's not falling. But also, I think there are the concerns with me more so lie in the early season, where it's like, what are the growing pains going to be? Because by the end of the season, I think we'll be having a much different conversation. By the end of the season, I think that they will have gelled enough. They will have enough experience to where it will be okay if everybody can stay healthy, and they will get consistent enough play from, I'm predicting, 4 of their 5 guys to be okay. 4 of their 5. And not every team has a perfect, in fact, no team has a perfect offensive line. No team, right? So I see 3, 7, 2, 4, 6, right? I think there's a large scale, a varying scale of where people are on this offensive line right now. And I see Be the Change saying, I think the conversation about the talent on the roster is judged by league average and not championship caliber. And I think you can honestly take this argument both ways, right? Where I think Baltimore does have championship caliber talent on their roster, but this talent is going to be judged by how much young guys can step up and perform. How much young guys can go out there and figure it out. How fast young guys can go out there and figure it out. Because when you have talent like the Ravens do, they have a lot of talent on it's everywhere. The Ravens have a lot of talent, and they have championship caliber talent on their roster. They do. But this season is going to be judged by the young players? Can the young players step up enough? Can enough of the young players step up enough? Right? Obviously, your season, you have to have Lamar ball out, Roquan, Kyle Hamilton, all of those guys are your key X factors this season from a general star perspective rides with them. But can the other guys around you? Can the young guys who are relying, young offensive linemen, young receivers, young pass rushers, etc., can those guys step up to the plate enough to where you're able to replicate the quality depth you had last season with guys playing well, 1 through 3 on the depth chart? That, to me, is going to be one of the key X factors this season with this team. And that's where I am, because stars obviously play their part and they're a massive part of it. But it can't just be the stars. You have to have the other talent around those guys step up. They obviously had that last season with how many vets they had and everybody who was on, rookie deals, contract years, whatever it may be, vets, 1-year deals. But the big part of this is going to be the young talent stepping up alongside the stars performing. So I think, again, the joint practices were a bag of mixed results for the Ravens. A lot of good updates, a lot of bad updates, right? I think wasn't all good, wasn't all bad, but I think that is just what it is. And we're going to spend the final couple of minutes here just generally wrapping up and me trying to find that tweet. And if I don't find it today, I'm going to find it to have on tomorrow's episode. It's literally the first thing I'm going to lead off with is that tweet. It was a comprehensive tweet of everything that happened in that 2-minute drill, where Lamar Jackson was able to scramble for some first downs. There were some incompletions. Rashad Bateman ended up catching a ball in clutch time in that drill as well. But of course, the one thing I needed, well, not the one thing, but the big thing I needed for the show, I thought I saved it, but I just did not. I did not do it. So it's interesting, though, because the offensive line, honestly, the trenches, you win and lose in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. I think some of the biggest struggles of this joint practice came out of there with the offensive line, constant pressures on Lamar, false starts, pre-snap penalties, not a ton of pressure on Jordan Love, it looks like here as well. And of course, there'll be more information that comes out over the course of the rest of the day here. So be sure to check out tomorrow's episode, because we will have more of a comprehensive guide to what happened, and I'll have more to go off of. But, at the end of the day, I'm not overreacting to the joint practice, right? I think there are some good things you can take away. I'm not saying it means nothing. Because, again, Isaiah Likely talked about this after the practice. Stars for the Ravens aren't going in the preseason. They're not playing. So it's good for those guys to be able to have that experience. That's why joint practices are so important. And that's why I think you see less stars to an extent playing in the preseason, at least for some teams. Baltimore's obviously one of those. But it's because you can have a day going up against the ones of another team, and you can put your ones out there, and that is the kind of shake of the rust deal as opposed to the preseason. So I still think there are benefits and pros and cons to playing your stars in the preseason. But in my opinion, I think this was a must to get those guys out there and performing. That's all I have for you here today on this episode, this live edition of Locked On Ravens. Again, really appreciate everybody tuning in today. I could not find the tweet. I'm going to find it. I'm going to have it for tomorrow's episode. So be sure to stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe here for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage, plus obviously these bonus edition episodes. We go live after every piece of Ravens big news, after every piece of Ravens game action as well. We'll have another episode coming for you tomorrow. Again, more comprehensive guide and takeaways, winners and losers from the joint practice from Green Bay. And we'll also be going live after the game on Saturday, instantly talking about what happened in that as well. So tell a friend, tell a family member, if you know somebody who's looking for Ravens coverage daily, be sure to send them our way over on Locked On Ravens. We're available for free video form and audio form. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in, whether you're live, whether you're watching or listening after the fact. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.